I definitely thought there was going to be a much clearer view of this lake in the background when I looked at this area on the map, but that's okay. In the past week, I have been to North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and right now, I am in Minnesota, which is why there's a lake in the background. The land of 10,000 lakes. Welcome to the end of week 12. Oh, I am week 12. This update's going to be a much quicker one, I promise. But in the past week, I have talked to a staggering 120 strangers from those many states, bringing our grand total to 872 strangers who have given me life advice, who I have photographed on my 50-year-old medium format film camera. Virtually, you'd be sitting in one of those seats over there, so pretend you're sitting there. I don't know if you can see, there's like a little ring here. Let me bring the camera closer. There we go. Now you can see this little ring here. So I haven't shared a lot of the life advice that I've gotten from strangers over the past few weeks because that's really part of the next phase. Once I can develop and scan the photos and then pair those photos with the life advice that those people gave me. For now, these weekly updates are more about the travels and the highlights and challenges of the traveling part of this series. But I will say, in the past week, one of my favorite things that I heard, and let me preface by saying that when I ask people about what they know now that they wish they knew earlier, more often than not, people don't make eye contact with me. When they're saying what they're saying, like if you are me, hold on. If you are me and I'm the stranger that I've just approached, here's what it looks like. And they're talking into a microphone just like this. What I wish I knew earlier was that blankety, blankety, blank, blankety, blank, blank. Yeah. And then they'll look at me at the end. Right now, that's how it usually goes. And the reason why I use that as a preface is because one of my favorite pieces of life advice this week was from somebody who was probably my age. And he did that, right? He did that thing where he was just kind of staring off into the distance, looking around anywhere except for me. It felt like he actually forgot I was there. And so I just patiently listened, because that's the best place to be when you're asking somebody to reflect on what they wish they knew earlier. So here's how it went. He said just like this. I wish I knew earlier how important it was to tell the people that you love how much you love them and how much you care about them and the things you love about them, because you never really know when they're going to be gone. And I just wish I had known that earlier. I got goosebumps. And you know, with most people who tell me something really deep like that, I always ask follow-up questions. I say, how did you have to figure that out? And in this case, I could tell that he was deep in thought, and I don't think he was on the verge of tears, but he was definitely getting a little bit emotional. I didn't want to push him into an uncomfortable space, so I didn't ask any follow-up questions. So what he meant by that, I'm sure we can infer, but it really touched me. So let's talk about the highlights for the past week. The first one being that a stranger gave me $40 cash for the purpose of getting a nice dinner that evening. Now, that's a highlight no matter what, but that was an extra highlight because just a few days prior to that, somewhere in North Dakota, I gave my leftover pizza, like a whole half of a pizza, to a homeless family. And I didn't think anything of it, right? But there's a balance to the universe, right? When you help somebody, help comes your way. And whether you believe that spiritually or just as a universe, whatever, I believe it's very much true. And so I don't do good things or help people for the purpose of getting anything in return, but it was really interesting to have given a pizza to a family for their dinner, and then to just a few days later get $40 from someone who specifically said use this to get a nice dinner. Awesome. And Eddie, if you're seeing this, thank you so much. You and your family, thank you for giving me that money. I got an amazing burger and beer, and I think an appetizer too. It was a great dinner, and the $40 covered it perfectly. Another highlight is that I was in Elk Point, South Dakota, and I don't even know why I was there. It's a tiny town. I think it's because I took a couple wrong turns and there was construction going on. I missed my exit, whatever. Eventually, I found an antique store, and I love antique stores. So I go in there, and I end up finding an undeveloped roll of film, which I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to get an undeveloped roll of film developed just to see what's on there. And so this particular roll is probably from the 70s or 80s. I bring it up to the guy who owns the shop, and I was like, check this out, man. I'm going to go get this developed. And without skipping a beat, I mean so quickly, he goes, it's probably porn. I was like, what? We were laughing about it. It was really funny, but totally unexpected when I brought it up there for him to respond that way. And we chatted for like 30 minutes. Another highlight in addition to that is that I made a TikTok about that. The guy who responded as "it's probably porn," and that TikTok has over 1 million views right now and gained me nearly 10,000 followers at the time of recording this video. That's insane. The next highlight is that when I was in Kansas, I was in Topeka first. I didn't find very many people in Topeka, and then I went about 30 minutes east to Lawrence, Kansas. And as I was in Lawrence finding a lot more people, I got a message from the official Kansas Tourism Instagram account saying, "Hey, we met somebody that we know earlier today. We'd love to give you a care package if you're still in Topeka." And I was like, "I'm not, but I'll come back." And so I did. I came back and I got a whole, hold on, let me show you the bag. They gave me this. Look at that. To the stars. And I think inside there's a hat and a couple other things, which was really nice. It just so happens I met people who work for the state and work for the state's tourism area. And so they were like, "Yeah, we want to just give you something as a welcome to Kansas." So that was nice. Another highlight is that I talked to a lot of people this week. I don't know if there's been a single other week where I talked to 120 people in the 7-day span. Maybe some of those first few weeks, possibly. Oh, I'm bleeding. Look at that, I'm bleeding. Wonder where that came from. Anyway, yeah, I talked to 120 people this week. That's a lot. I mean, there were weeks where I talked to just 30. So it felt good to get through so much of my quota. Another highlight is that a stranger in Omaha, Nebraska gave me a playlist to listen to. Like, we sat and chatted for just a little bit and she was like, "Do you need a new playlist?" And I said, "Yeah." Turns out I enjoyed the playlist. So Divine, if you're seeing this, thank you. That was very kind of you. Another quick highlight, I got a hotel in Kansas City thanks to Teresa Ryan. This is the second hotel you've gotten from me on this journey, and it will be the last because I only have about 10 days left of the journey, but it was very nice to just relax. And a final highlight is that when I was in Des Moines, Iowa, I noticed that there were a lot of people with skateboards, and so I thought, okay, interesting, there's just maybe a big skateboard culture in Des Moines. Turns out there's a huge, contest or competition or festival going on sponsored by Mountain Dew. So I stumbled across this gigantic community of skateboarders who were coming together for this thing, which was really cool. And if you know me well, you know I've been skateboarding since I was literally 10. So that was fun. And I met a lot of interesting people there. Some challenges real quick. The first one being that I don't really know if I'm going super fast because I'm in the home stretch and I'm trying to wrap it all up, or if it's because I feel just kind of uninspired by the geography. I think, upon a little bit of reflection, I'm almost positive it's the second one, that I'm less inspired by the geography, and so I don't necessarily need to stay in any one place for longer, which is how I wanted to spend a lot more time in Montana and even Wyoming and Colorado, all those mountainous states out west. And now that I'm kind of in the Midwest where I've grown up and it's a lot of farmland, almost entirely farmland, I'm like, I'm just going to get through the cities I want to go to, talking to the strangers I need to talk to, and then I'll move on. A final challenge just being that I am not eating super healthy, and I only have a few days left of this journey, so I'm not beating myself up over it, but I can feel it. My body feels slower and more tired, and so I'm looking forward to getting back to eating some really balanced and healthier meals soon. Okay, this is Imran from the next day. I totally forgot to record a challenge from yesterday when I recorded the original part of the video, and that challenge being that I had to patch one of my tires again, right? My front right tire had a nail in it, and it was slowly leaking. So it was leaking slowly enough that I could go and find a place to get my tire patched. But the reason why I wanted to make sure I recorded this and added that in is because the first time my tire had to get patched earlier in this trip, it was definitely something I didn't forget about mentioning, right? And this time I didn't even remember. It was just part of my week. Didn't even think about it. And so I say all that because going through this journey and being constantly challenged basically at every point of every day of the entire last 80 days has made me shift what I consider to be a challenge. And, if you've ever had your tire patched, it's a small and cheap repair. It's nothing crazy, but it could have been a blowout on the road. And I wasn't really worried about it. I was like, it's okay. It's a small nail. I've gone through this before. It's no longer really a challenge to me because I've done it before. So that's kind of nice. So that's really it for week 12. Honestly, over the next week, I'm almost done. I have to get the rest of Minnesota. I got to get Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and then I'm back to Ohio. So in the next week, I think you're gonna see me wrap up all of the states except for Ohio, because I plan to get a lot of people in Columbus, my hometown, before I return back to my dad's house where my cats are and all my things, and then I start to develop and scan. So, wow. I mean, if you've been sticking around, or if you've been around, since week 1, can you believe that we're already at the end? One more week, one more full week before I'm wrapped up, and then beginning the next phase of development scanning. Crazy. Thank you so much for following along, for supporting, and so many of you have supported in so many different ways. It's not always just financially. The ones of you who are supporting financially, it's awesome, and I know there are so many more people who are supporting just by thinking about me, telling their friends, all those things like that, and that, I might not always literally see it, but I also see it. So it means a lot to me. Thank you, and I will see you in the week 13 update.